When you were learning the different styles of dance, the locking, the punking, and the popping, as a female young dancer, did you get any flack from the young men during that time?
Oh, this is interesting. Back in the Grand Hotel days, there were girls that did the locking, and they were good at it too. But they also did other dance styles. When I did the locking, I did it more on a pure level, I guess I would say. I took it a little deeper and collectively really wanted to do all of them with me involved. So some people say, Anna, you were the first girl that, and I go, no, Tony Basil was for me. She was the one that influenced me, Tony Basil. Well, you were the first one that wore heels. No, Tony Basil was. She wore little heels, but they were still heels. When I got to the Grand Hotel and I started entering the contests, it's funny because it wasn't so much about being a girl. It was about how young I was. And I was kicking their butt, and they weren't liking that. So it wasn't that I was a woman in the beginning. It was the fact that I was so young, sneaking in and winning. And there really wasn't a race for me. Some people talk about race and all that now. I never really saw color. I just saw dancers, you know? And there were other women, but like I said, they would get more into gymnastics. They do a little bit more jazz style. They were a little bit more not so true totally to the dance, you know? So, and I had the lockers helping me. So they were always pushing me to do things because they knew I would do it. Like Junior would say, if you're going to leap off the stage, you should do it like this. And he didn't look at me and say, Anna, you're a girl. You shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be leaping off that stage. No, it wasn't like that at all. It was like, girl, if you're going to do it right. This is how you need to do it. You know, so they kind of put away that I was a girl. But then they realized I was and go, man, did you see that chick do that? Da, 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 da. So on one hand, it was good. And on the other, it was a little difficult for work. Not in the clubs, but when I went to get work, they were like, well, you're not strong enough. And then I go, well, let me show you what I can do. And then when I would do it and do the splits and the dives and all the tricks and stuff that they were looking for at the time with locking, they realized, well, wait a minute. You know, this is a girl that can really do stuff. And I said, yeah, there's other girls, but I really got into it a little bit more. So for me, I realized at that moment in my very early years when I did my first movie, Thank God It's Friday, and that was 1977, with Alpha Anderson, who actually made up these steps that you people do now, alphas and corkscrew. Alpha's the one that made these steps up. And, not to get sidetracked, but a lot of time they gave respect to the person that influenced them on the step, so they would name it after them. So there were certain names of certain dance steps, not necessarily that they did the dance step completely, but they were part of why they took the step. But with Alpha, he actually made those steps up. So he got a hold of me at the Grand Hotel with the lockers. So all of a sudden, I'm learning how to do alphas with one hand, diving into alphas, alpha split, corkscrew alpha, because everything was geared around alpha with Alpha. So he got me to Thank God It's Friday, and I realized it is a little harder for the women. They're looking at the guys who do all the work, and I'm going, wait a minute, I can do all that. Why can't I do that? So I started realizing these ladies need to know you can be real strong and still be feminine. So I kind of went on a mission in the beginning in my head when I was doing that to always tell people, come on, join in with me. The girls, hang out with girls. Come on, learn what I'm doing. You could really do some stuff with it, you know? And always trying to convince the guys, I can do that. And they go, no, you can't. I go, yes, I can. And then I would do it and they'd go, whoa. So it kind of was shifting a little. And then because Tony was always out there doing stuff, and Tony always did all the dances. She was always ahead of the game, you know, always ahead of herself. And she worked me. She taught me staging and counts and really got me involved on the level of performance on a stage and shows and theatrical and all that kind of thing. And I realized, you know, it is a little tough for the women, and still is till this day, but we've come a long ways, and there's a lot more of us, and there's a lot more physical dances out there that is allowing them to show that. I just wish they would stay a little more feminine, but that's my own personal thing, because I always did that. Once I dressed like the guys in the locker outfit, I had to wear everything they wore because there was a reason behind it. There was a feeling. The baggy pants made them feel a certain way. The marshmallow shoes made them move a certain way. or their hat, the tricks with the hat. There was always a reason. Once I wore all that, then I would switch it up and make it mine and shorten it and wear the heels, the little ankle socks, what have you. Because I was a woman and I liked that I was feminine and that I could still be very powerful at the same time. I thought that was really important, and I still to this day tell people that's what gives us our edge around over the men. Don't think it makes us weaker. It actually makes us stronger because they can't be feminine unless they want to be. So we can be just as strong and then turn around and smile and be very cute and feminine. And that will get us over and win over the guy because he may not necessarily want to do that. So that's my whole thing is don't lose your femininity because we've gotten so far with it. Okay. Just keep that
up. Street dancing has always been very competitive. And I want to know, in the early years in your street dance career with the Lockers and the other group that you were exposed to, was it, were they unified back then, or were groups being separate, or was there more unity back then in the street dance community, or it was always tension?
I have to tell you, for me, because I did a lot of the dances and I did all of them and I was very flexible, I worked with a lot of people. I mean, they would put a group together because they got a show and they go, hey, we love how you dance. Can you get 3 more people with you and perform at a show? And they go, sure. They come to the club and go, hey, Anna, we got this gig in about 3 days. You want to do it with us? It's so-and-so amount of money. It's so-and-so time. You want to do it? And they go, sure. Oh, we got to come up with a name. Okay, let's think of a name. And they just think of a name and name it. It wasn't even about that. It was just about work. It was just about working. It wasn't about who had the better group, who had the better crew, none of that. This is so different now, the battling and all that.
So the atmosphere
totally
of street dancers was more welcoming towards one another?
Yes, it really was. For me, on my point of view, remember we're talking about my point of view here because it could have been harder for others. But for me, I was dancing with everybody. It wasn't about, well, I don't want to dance with that person because they're in that group, or I'm not sure about that group. It wasn't about that. We were all in the club dancing, freestyling, having fun. And they'd go, hey, you want to do this gig? I go, yeah. Okay, we got to wear these outfits. Sure. Okay. And we'd go and do it and then come back and go back to our daily thing. It wasn't about, oh, we got this group and our group's better than your group and you should hire this group over here and we got Anna over here. No, it wasn't like that at all. I was in so many groups at the time working and dancing. And then I even danced in dance class with Dancing Machine. I danced with Shabadoo for many years, and Shabadoo, he'd get a gig, and they'd say, okay, we'd like a group of you guys. He'd go and get the group of how he wanted to structure his number to, but I was his partner, so I partnered with him for many years. I worked with Tony for many years. I had Deputy, Lionel. There's so many dancers that I worked for and so much stuff I did, but it was never captured on film because they didn't have it. And we did a lot of shows, a lot of videos, a lot of parties at the time, believe it or not, but big mansions and things like that, and opening acts and stuff like that. We did a lot of stuff for street dancers. We were very, very lucky. And it was always about, hey, you want to be a part of this? Hey, you want to do that? Not, we're building this group because we want to kick so-and-so's butt. It wasn't about that. It was always about just working. And getting better and trying to make that dollar and get recognized and just keep working at what we love to do, and that was dance.
Okay. All of this was going on during the time when Soul Train was on. Was that something that you wanted to be involved in as a dancer, Soul Train?
Well, because I grew up more with American Bandstand and Real Don Steele and those other shows, there was like 3 shows out there before Soul Train. That those were my first influences, because I got to see from partner dancing, touching, to all of a sudden separating and doing these, these other wild steps and this freedom that when Soul Train came out, I followed suit to go to that because it was part of what I had already grown up with. And I dug Soul Train because they did all these soul steps, and you saw Dawn and people locking on there and doing all these different styles of dance and stuff. It was very fun. I went on there a couple of times, but that was it. Same with American Bandstand. I went on there 3 or 4 times myself on there. but I actually enjoyed watching and picking up and seeing new steps here and there that were being evolved, that you could go, oh, look at that, that's a new step, and then you find out the name. Oh, that's the breakdown, or that's the funky chicken. They had these names, and I loved that there were always these steps that were very soulful and fun to do, that you could do in a club. And it wasn't about who was actually doing it right or wrong. It was about just being a part of this groove whenever you went into a club. So Soul Train followed suit right in after that, because I had American Bandstand, Real Don Steele, and then Soul Train. And then after that, I started working too much. And then I ended up being on some of the shows because of Jeff Kutash, who had his dancing machine and dance class on Midnight Special. And then they did a spin-off with Kicks in Hot City. And I got to be involved in those shows, which is, to me, exciting because I grew up with that, with the American Bandstand. So I felt like I grew out of that, and all of a sudden here I am, a part of something that's being brought back around. Because it worked. The formula worked, having acts, having dancers, having, people. And it was really cool to be a part of all that. So, definitely.
Today, a lot of young dancers strive to be on TV as far as America's Best Dance Crew, and So You Think You Can Dance. What were some of the things that you wanted to do when you were dancing, when you were younger, when you would look and say, wow, I want to be on Soul Train, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to get on Broadway? What were some of the things that you wanted to achieve?
Well, in the beginning it was just dance. I just really wanted to dance and perform and show people what I love to do in the very, very early stages when I was learning locking and whacking and all that. And then when I started doing shows and things like that, you got to understand I was very young, 15, 16, 17 years old. I was just excited that I was somehow working, and doing what I love to do. It was very strange for me in the beginning. Then when I started to understand that there was these openings and these opportunities, I really wanted to do TV and live performances and commercials. I just thought all that was something that I would really love to do. But when we started doing stuff, we got really lucky because as street dancers, we were doing opening acts for people. We were on talk shows talking about us and our dance. And we got to really share a part of who we were on a level of being not a star, but not a backup dancer. It was very strange. We didn't back anybody up. We never danced behind an artist. If anything, we opened for an artist. So when all that started happening, I wanted more of that. I liked opening and doing live shows in Vegas or New York, or so much stuff I did that I got really lucky at.
This is when you were in a group, or when you was a solo dancer, you was able to do some of these shows?
No, it was when I was solo and in a group. So, and a lot of the shows we did with Shabadoo. And then I also did the movie Thank God It's Friday because of Alpha. And then I did commercials and videos because of Tony Basil. I was a solo and a group at the same time. Because back then it was always about working. So even though I was in a group, I was still doing my own things separately too, as a soloist. So there was a soloist and the person that was involved in the group. Because I said in the beginning, they'd always ask me, hey, you want to do this? Hey, you want to do that? Or you want to do it by yourself? Or you want to train somebody? I was involved in all that. So I kind of kept that going the whole time. So I always tell kids now, you got your TV shows, you got your cruise show, you said dance